The chamber of the Vare Dominion Council glittered like a treasury, walls laced with pulsing light veins, floor panels humming softly as anti-gravity stabilizers kept the enormous ring station steady against the pull of the nearby gas giant. Delegates in silver-plated robes filled the tiers, voices low and sharp. They had gathered not to celebrate their empire's wealth, but to finalize a bargain that carried the stench of betrayal. At the center of the chamber stood Calithera, a young woman whose lineage stretched back to the founding queens of the Dominion. Her skin bore the faint shimmer of bioluminescence, a trait that once marked her bloodline as divine. Yet today, that glow seemed less like a blessing and more like a spotlight for shame. Kaylee's wrists were bound by sleek magnetic restraints, each pulse reminding her of the council's verdict. She was no longer heir, no longer kin. She was a commodity. "We require their neural mesh technology," one counselor intoned, his 4 eyes narrowing on the humans seated across the chamber. "And humans crave alliances. Let us seal this bargain with something of sentimental weight." Her mother, once a queen, now reduced to a weary figure weighed down by political necessity, did not meet her gaze. Kaylee tried to speak, tried to plead, but the restraints shocked her throat into silence. Words were dangerous here. The human delegation was small compared to the Dominion's towering assembly. Just 6 figures, armored but not ostentatiously. Where the Dominion displayed wealth in every gesture, the humans radiated stark efficiency. Gray combat uniforms, polished exoframes on their shoulders, weapons locked but within reach. At their head stood Captain Elias Ward, a man whose presence did not rely on alien grandeur but on a quiet, unshakable steadiness. His eyes, human eyes unadorned by biolenses or enhancements, swept across the chamber, pausing at Kaylee. Unlike the others, he didn't look through her as if she were a discarded tool. He looked at her. The Dominion Chancellor raised a jeweled hand. "As agreed, we trade you our knowledge of quantum forges and raw plasma conduits. In return..." His hand gestured toward Kaylee, as if she were a vase to be exchanged. "You take this girl." Murmurs rippled through the hall. The alien nobles' mouths curved into cold smirks. A princess turned into a bargaining chip. What greater humiliation? Captain Ward's jaw tightened. A human alliance does not deal in slaves. His voice was even, but its weight carried through the hall. "She is not a slave," the Chancellor said smoothly, though amusement tinged his words. "She is surplus. Her lineage means nothing now. Consider her a token of trust." Kaylee felt something inside her fracture. Surplus. Worthless. That was all she was in their eyes. Ward's second-in-command leaned toward him. "Sir, this is political theater. If we refuse, they walk away with their weapons tech. Earth needs this deal." Ward glanced again at Kaylee. Her hands trembled, but her back remained rigid. Her eyes burned, not with fear, but with a defiance she was too proud to show. In that instant, Ward made his decision. He stepped forward, crossing the chamber floor until he stood just meters from her. The alien guards bristled, weapons half-raised. But he ignored them, focusing only on Kaylee. "What is your name?" he asked softly, his voice cutting through the silence. She blinked, stunned. No one had asked her that since the tribunal. Her lips parted, hesitant. "Calithera." The restraint cuff buzzed angrily, punishing her for speaking, but Ward's expression darkened. He reached into his wrist console and disabled the frequency jamming their voices. No more muzzling. Gasps erupted in the chamber. No outsider should override Dominion restraints. But human tech was adaptable, clever, made for breaking rules in ways the Dominion never expected. Kaylee's throat burned, but she could speak again. Why do you care? Ward held her gaze. Because no one deserves to be traded like cargo. The council erupted into outrage. Accusations of insolence, threats of annulled treaties, talk of war. Yet through the storm of voices, Kaylee felt something strange bloom in her chest. Someone, this human soldier, had looked past her supposed worthlessness and seen her as a person. In the end, the treaty was signed, though the Dominion made certain to sneer at the transaction. Kaylee was handed over to the humans with less ceremony than a crate of weapons. The council's final words echoed in her ears. Do what you like with her. She is of no use to us. As the delegation exited the chamber, Kaylee followed the humans in silence. Every step away from her people felt like a plunge into an abyss. She had no reason to trust these strangers. And yet, she remembered the steady conviction in Ward's eyes. On the docking platform, Dominion guards shoved her forward. She stumbled, but a hand caught her, firm, steady. Human. Ward. You're safe now, he told her. Her laugh was bitter, edged with disbelief. Safe. Nothing. My people made sure of that. Ward's grip did not falter. Then they were blind. You'll find you mean something to us. The hum of the human starship swallowed his words as they boarded. Kaylee glanced back once, seeing the distant spires of the Dominion recede into cold indifference. Then she turned forward. For the first time since her trial, a spark of something unfamiliar flickered in her heart. Not hope, not yet, but something close. Because a human had stepped forward when everyone else looked away. The human vessel Resolute streaked through slipstream space, its hull rattling faintly against the turbulent currents. To Kaylee, who had grown up aboard Grand Dominion dreadnoughts, ships the size of cities, the Resolute seemed small, almost fragile. Its corridors were bare metal, its lights simple and practical, and its hum of machinery constant. Yet there was an energy within its crew that she had never felt among her own kind, a sense of shared purpose, not hierarchy. Still, Kaylee couldn't shake the weight in her chest. She had been discarded, deemed useless, and now lived among strangers who spoke in clipped tones and laughed in ways she did not understand. One evening, as she lingered near the observation deck, Captain Ward approached. He stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the swirling slipstream currents. You're quiet these days, he said. Would you prefer I chatter like your crew? She replied, her tone sharper than intended. Ward didn't flinch. I'd prefer you to be yourself, not what they tried to make you. Her glow flickered faintly across her cheekbones. She looked away, unsure how to answer. No one in the Dominion had ever asked her who she was. They had only told her what she should be, and when she failed, they had discarded her. Before she could speak, the deck shuddered. Warning klaxons wailed, and the AI voice cut in. Slipstream intercept detected. Multiple hostiles inbound. Kaylee's blood ran cold. She recognized the energy signatures streaming across the holomap. Dominion war drones. Dozens of them, sleek and silver, with their infamous self-repairing exoshells. Ward's crew sprang into motion, their voices urgent but not panicked. Shields at full. Drone count, 32 and climbing. Kaylee whispered. They've come for me. Ward's jaw tightened. Then they'll have to go through us. The Resolute snapped out of slipstream space, stars bursting into view. In seconds, the Dominion drones swarmed, energy bolts tearing across the void. The humans responded not with sheer firepower. They couldn't match the Dominion's raw strength, but with strategy. Deploy decoy beacons. Ward ordered. Bright holographic signatures burst into the dark, mimicking the Resolute's energy field. The drones scattered, targeting illusions, buying precious seconds. Kaylee watched, astonished. The Dominion would have launched a counter-volley, meeting force with greater force. But the humans, they adapted. They tricked. They used wit where her people used arrogance. Still, the drones adjusted quickly, converging back on the ship. Plasma fire scorched the Resolute's hull. Kaylee's heart hammered as she gripped the railing. She would not be the cause of these people's deaths. There is something, she said suddenly, rushing towards side. I am not just worthless. My blood carries encoded resonance, the kind your scanners can't detect. It was meant for unlocking Dominion artifacts, but it can disrupt drone control nodes if amplified correctly. Ward studied her, eyes narrowing in thought rather than suspicion. You're saying you can jam their hive link? Yes, she said quickly. But I'll need your technology to amplify it. He didn't hesitate. Then let's get you to engineering. The crew worked in a storm of motion. Engineers rerouted power from the secondary slipstream drive, forming a resonance amplifier. Kaylee pressed her glowing palms against the interface, feeling the ancient patterns in her blood surge like fire. The ship's systems strained to handle it. Frequency spike at 60%. An engineer shouted. Kaylee cried out as her veins burned with light, but she held steady. Across the view screen, several drones twitched violently, their attack patterns shattering. One by one, they spiraled out of formation, colliding with each other in chaotic bursts. Cheers erupted from the crew. But the victory was short-lived. A massive signature appeared on the radar, an escort frigate emerging from slipstream. They sent a capital-class ship, Ward muttered. Of course they did. Kaylee staggered, drained from channeling her resonance. You can't fight that head-on, she whispered. Ward placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We don't fight it head-on. We fight it our way. His voice cut through the command deck. Initiate Operation Ghost Net. The humans moved with practiced precision. Dozens of nanotech canisters were launched into the void, each releasing clouds of microscopic drones that cloaked themselves in enemy energy signatures. Within minutes, the Dominion frigate sensors registered phantom fleets all around it. Feed them false coordinates. Blind their targeting arrays, Ward ordered. Kaylee watched in awe as the frigate fired volley after volley into empty space, chasing ghosts. Every wasted shot weakened its reserves. Finally, Ward turned to her. One last push. Can you spike their hive link again? Just enough to scramble their navigation. Her body screamed in protest, but Kaylee nodded. I can try. With trembling hands, she pressed against the console once more. Light surged from her skin, flowing into the resonance grid. The Dominion frigate shuddered on the radar, its course veering wildly as its systems collapsed into chaos. The humans didn't destroy it, they didn't need to. The frigate spun helplessly out of range, retreating back into slipstream before it tore itself apart. The surviving drones scattered, cut off from their control node. Silence fell across the deck, broken only by the crew's ragged sighs of relief. Kaylee collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Ward knelt beside her, offering his hand. You saved us, he said firmly. She shook her head weakly. No, you saved me. I only gave you a weapon. You gave me purpose. Ward's grip tightened, steady as ever. You're not a weapon, Kaylee. You're a person. And no one gets left behind on this ship. For a moment, she simply stared at him. In his eyes, she saw no calculation, no cold assessment of her value, only unwavering belief. Something she had never known, not even among her own bloodline. And for the first time in her life, Kaylee began to believe she might truly belong, not because of what she could give, but because of who she was. The Resolute limped through orbit above the shattered moon of Deiros, its hull scarred from battles Kaylee had never thought humans could survive. Yet survive they had. Again and again, these fragile-looking beings had faced fleets larger, weapons stronger, and enemies colder than steel. They endured not through sheer power, but through sheer will. But survival had only bought them time. Now, the Dominion Armada itself loomed across the stars, a vast phalanx of warships, their hulls gleaming like blades, their banners unfurled. At their center stood the High Dominion flagship, a vessel so large it cast shadows on the planet below. On board it waited the council that had condemned Kaylee to worthlessness. "Message incoming," the Resolute's comms officer said grimly. The view screen flared to life, revealing the Chancellor himself. His eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction as they fixed on Kaylee. "So, the discarded has become a rebel," he sneered. "You dare wield what is not yours." Kaylee stood, her palms still glowing faintly from the resonance she had channeled days before. She felt Ward's quiet presence beside her, steady as a mountain. "I dare," she said, voice trembling but unyielding. "And I no longer stand alone." The Chancellor's lip curled. "You are an embarrassment to your kind. Hand yourself over, and perhaps we will spare your human pets." Ward stepped forward, his voice like a blade cutting through steel. "No one here is a pet. If you want her, you'll have to come through every one of us." The crew erupted in cheers, fists pounding consoles, voices raised in defiance. For the first time in her life, Kaylee felt the warmth of a people who stood with her, not over her. But warmth would not stop plasma fire. "Battle stations," Ward ordered. The Dominion fleet surged forward, a tide of fire and fury. The humans scrambled, deploying planetary rail cannons, hidden mines, and swarms of decoy drones. Space lit up with explosions. The Resolute dove between enemy lines, its smaller frame weaving through the giants like a predator among lumbering beasts. Still, numbers told their tale. For every drone cut down, 2 more replaced it. For every frigate outmaneuvered, another closed in. The humans were clever, but cleverness had limits against overwhelming force. Kaylee felt desperation claw at her chest. She could not let them die for her. Not again. Then she remembered the truth she had once whispered to Ward. Her blood was not just a burden. It was a key. A living conduit to Dominion artifacts older than any empire. And on the moon below lay one such relic, the obelisk of Deiros, a towering spire of black crystal, long dismissed as inert. Her people had studied it for centuries, never unlocking its secrets. Because they had lacked what she carried. She turned to Ward, eyes blazing. "The obelisk, it will answer me. With it, I can end this." Ward studied her, the weight of command heavy in his gaze. "It's dangerous. You might not survive." Kaylee lifted her chin. "Better to risk myself than watch your people die." Ward's hand closed over hers, firm and warm. "You won't be alone. We go together." Minutes later, a shuttle broke through the chaos, streaking toward the moon's surface. Kaylee and Ward landed amid craters and jagged rock, the obelisk rising before them like a shard of night piercing the stars. Its surface pulsed faintly as Kaylee approached, her blood resonating in her veins. She pressed her hands against the cold crystal. Light surged outward, racing along its surface, filling the air with a deep, thrumming hum. From orbit, the Dominion ships faltered. Systems flickered. Engines stuttered. The resonance tore through their hive links, unraveling their unity. The Chancellor's voice shrieked over the comms. "Stop this at once. You are nothing. You are ours." But Kaylee only pressed harder, her body blazing with radiance. Visions of her ancestors' arrogance flashed through her mind, but she pushed them aside. She was not their failure. She was her own strength. Ward stood behind her, one arm braced against her back as if lending his strength to hers. "You're not theirs anymore, Kaylee. You're ours. You're yours." With a final cry, she unleashed the resonance in a wave that shattered the obelisk's silence forever. The blast tore through space like a living storm. Dominion warships buckled, their hive links collapsing. Drones spun lifelessly. Even the great flagship shuddered, its systems failing. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion armada broke. Silence followed, heavy and stunned. The humans' ragged cheers soon filled it. Voices carried over comms in disbelief and joy. Kaylee collapsed, trembling but alive. Ward caught her before she struck the ground, cradling her as her glow dimmed. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she said weakly, meeting his gaze. "We did it." Later, when the Resolute returned to orbit, the Council's final broadcast arrived. Not threats this time, but silence. They could not deny what they had seen. The girl they discarded had brought an empire to its knees, not with domination, but with compassion and courage learned from humans. As the stars stretched out before them, Kaylee stood on the deck beside Ward. For the first time, her glow was steady, not from bloodline or duty, but from the fire in her heart. "They called me worthless," she said quietly. Ward looked at her, his hand brushing hers. They were wrong. In his eyes, she found the truth she had searched for all her life. Not power, not approval, but belonging. And as the ships sailed into the future, Kaylee knew the humans had given her more than safety. They had given her everything. The stars were quiet again. Where once the Dominion armada had blotted out entire constellations, now only fragments of shattered warships drifted silently. Humanity's smaller fleet, battered but unbroken, glowed faintly in the aftermath of battle. Against every prediction they had endured, Kaylee stood on the observation deck of the Resolute. Her hands pressed lightly against the glass as if she could feel the vastness beyond. Her reflection shimmered faintly, the glow in her skin steadier than ever before. But this time it was not the false radiance of her bloodline. It was the light of belonging. Behind her, Captain Ward approached quietly. He carried none of the pomp or arrogance of the Dominion generals she had grown up under. His uniform was scuffed, his frame weary, but his eyes were steady, always steady. "They'll come again," Kaylee murmured, watching the wreckage drift. "The Dominion doesn't forgive humiliation." Ward stood beside her, folding his arms. "Then we'll be ready. We don't bow. Not to them, not to anyone." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You humans. You fight like flames in the dark. Small, fragile, but impossible to smother. And you," he said gently, "fight like someone who finally knows her worth." Kaylee turned toward him fully. For years, her worth had been measured in bloodline, in politics, in what she could be used for. But the humans had asked for none of that. They had not demanded she prove herself. They had simply stood beside her. "You gave me a home," she whispered, "when my own people threw me away." Ward shook his head. "We didn't give it to you. You claimed it. You chose to stand with us. That's what makes it real." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of the ship. Then Kaylee reached out, her fingers brushing his. His hand closed over hers, warm and firm, grounding her in a way no empire ever had. The intercom crackled, the crew's laughter and cheers spilling through as reports of victory rolled in. Humanity had won, not through dominance, but through resilience, ingenuity, and unity. The kind of unity that had taken a discarded alien girl and made her part of their family. Kaylee looked once more at the stars. Once they had been a prison of duty and expectation. Now they were open roads. They will write songs of this battle, she said softly. The humans who defied an empire. The girl they called worthless who helped bring it low. Ward chuckled. Songs are fine. But I think living the future matters more than singing about the past. She smiled then, a true smile, unburdened and free. Then let's live it. Together. The ship's engines roared, carrying them toward uncharted stars. Kaylee stood with her new family, no longer a token traded away, no longer a relic of a cruel empire. She had found her place. She had found her worth. And in the heart of a human, she had found everything.